Let's check out some of the action from the weekend and the overnight session here for futures. Of course, it starts with the excitement in BTC. Pretty big drop here, no doubt about it. Coming on the back of tweets from Elon Musk, basically changing teams from Bitcoin a couple of months ago to Doge now or something. Bottom line is he pretty much launched like a full-bore war against Bitcoin over the weekend compared to his tone just a few months ago when they put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. That was at the beginning of the year, and that was when we moved from 30 to 45,000. That big gap up on the chart has been a reason why 45,000 has been the target that we've been talking about for looking at to the downside as a place for support if Bitcoin drops. And now putting this in the context of the bearish case in the narrative that I've been outlining here for months. So let's think about it here. Firstly, Bitcoin finds a little bit of strength here as Elon clarifies in a tweet this morning overnight that they haven't sold their Bitcoin position yet, even though he had kind of jokingly teased that maybe they would think about it, or that coiners who don't like him now deserve it, something like that. It's hard to know exactly what's going on in his tweets, but the bottom line is he was pointing out basically the same thing that was debated about Bitcoin from like day one. Elon bringing up the real problem, and some would argue that is still a problem, is the debate about efficacy of a digital token versus security of a digital token. So he's basically bringing us back to square one, something that has been talked about in the crypto community now forever, which is, what do you prioritize? The security of something, Bitcoin's security, the censorship resistance of Bitcoin, or the efficacy and the utility of it as an actual means of exchange? Well, things are very slow on BTC, and it's not the best thing to actually transfer money with and spend on it. We all know that story, right? So he's not really adding anything new here, but basically what he's doing is just, once again, pointing out the inherent issue for Bitcoin, which is, what do we use it for? It's this great, interesting technology, but what do we use it for? So here's the overnight move. You have to put it in the context of what Bitcoin's been doing for months. Because here's the thing. Technically, it's been breaking down. That's been the whole point of our coverage here. And the most important part of it was that Bitcoin did something it had never done before when it broke out at that high to 65,000. We said it here the day it broke out. The reason why I wasn't on board with this from a bull case is because we had slowing momentum at an all-time high. That had never happened in Bitcoin before, ever. Ever, ever, ever. When people tell you, oh, it's a normal Bitcoin sell-off, it's not. When people tell you this is normal volatility, it's not. By math and simple data alone, the relative strength of Bitcoin was declining on a breakout. It's never happened before. Let that set in. This is why we observe things through momentum measures and rates of change. It's very simple math, and we call it technical analysis, but all it is just observing the numbers that are placed on the chart when it makes each tick. It's numbers. It's very simple. Bitcoin's high on slowing momentum was suspiciously weird because that's not what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is a rocket ship people get on board with because the higher it goes, the more intense it goes to the next level. But that's not what happened here. It got to that next level and it slowed down, it fizzled, the rocket turned around, and now it's going the other way. Is Elon pushing it specifically at this moment? Sure, but this chart has been in trouble for a while. And if we break down further through 45,000, things could get very dicey for Bitcoin pretty soon. Because from there, you're basically looking at the next support point down here in kind of low 32s. And then from there, back to 20. Okay? And by the way, nobody in the Bitcoin world expects that type of thing to happen. Even though they've become accustomed to 20-30% downturns, according to the Bitcoin canon that many follow of what's supposed to happen after a block halving, this thing is not supposed to be going down 40-50% right now. All right, so look, we'll talk about it later, but that's the technical case. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about futures, because I also think Bitcoin's so important, not just because it's interesting, but because Bitcoin, until we figure out what that utility and that use case is, which clearly we haven't figured out yet, Elon's talking about it here still, the best way to think about it is as a gauge of risk-taking behavior. How willing are investors to take risk? And that's where we can connect it to the stock market, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's very frothy. Yes, crypto is wild, frothy, and crazy volatile, and most of the stuff is probably worthless, but the stock market has issues as well with being overbought, with being the most expensive since .com, and all these things. So if risk appetite wanes in Bitcoin, then it's probably going to have some trouble keeping up some of the lofty valuations here as well. So let's watch the NASDAQ this week. Can we get back above basically where we are right now? I think 13,300, 13.4 is going to be a very interesting place to watch. We found a little bit of resistance here the last couple of days. And if you look back, this is basically a pivot point here. It's the top of the range from back in February and March, exactly where we are right now. Rallying from here would be really good for the bulls and would suggest that we can maybe get some froth to come out of crypto. And who knows, maybe it could be good for the stock market. I don't think it will be. I think it's all connected, but I could be wrong. Let's let the data and the technicals tell us. If we break down from here, then it probably means we should think about this 13,400 as resistance.